Hey everybody, I'm Sarah,
And I'm Erin.
and this is 31 Nights of Scary Shit, Scary Stories Edition.
Ooh.
Hey everybody, we're going to be doing something new
Yay.
tonight, friends.
I'm excited.
Yes, super pumped. So, what we're going to do, we've been doing just, your run-of-the-mill scary shit stories, and now what we're going to focus on is something that, Gus, really? Pardon the interruption. Gus has decided he needs to infiltrate the podcast with his screams, so that'll add a nice spooky layer to it, right?
Sure.
Just like a cat screaming.
Spooky or annoying, but yeah, sure.
We'll go with spooky. So we're gonna, okay, back to what we were talking about. We're going to be focusing on the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books.
Yeah.
Super pumped.
Tell our audience about the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark book because...
Okay, well, hopefully, most people should know about this, but obviously...
I didn't.
Okay, I know, Erin, you didn't know about it, and I'm sure there's lots of people. All four of you are probably going, I don't know what it is.
Wait a minute though. I know why I didn't know of it, because remember, around the time that the parents were flipping out about it and wanting it off the shelves, it would have been about my heyday.
Oh yeah,
where it probably wouldn't have been on the shelf.
Yeah, valid point.
That's my
valid point.
But here's the thing I want to say. My parents would not have cared at all, and I would have been reading it. So, or they wouldn't.
It was a simpler time.
They would have been like, "She's yeah." But I mean, my parents, like, they monitored my content in terms of TV all the time. But they would have been like, "It's a book. I mean, she's reading a book. Great." You know, they don't take time to check my books.
When was the first time you read a Stephen King book?
Oh, I had to have been probably pre-middle school, like maybe like
too young.
Yeah, probably
is what that means.
Yeah, like 5th grade. But like, that's the thing. My parents saw books as like automatically pure and good, you know. But it was music they were worried about. It was like
that damn devil music.
Yeah, it was music. It was Prince.
They
didn't want me listening to Prince music. But anyway,
Prince was the devil.
Well, he made some dirty music kind of prior to Purple Rain, but still, whatever.
But still, it's Prince. Yeah. So anyway, I mean. So, for anyone that doesn't know, I'm not going to assume that everyone knows people about Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. But anyway, it's this book that came out in like the 80s, late 80s-ish, I think. Right? Yeah. Late 80s, early 90s. And it was this guy, Alvan Schwartz, who took all of these folklore, legend, mythical kind of spooky stories and compiled them into a book called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And then Stephen Gammell illustrated. And when I tell you, I wish that this podcast was visual.
Just for this.
Just really. Solely based off of the images. Know that I mean it, because they are so creepy. Like, I wouldn't say scary, like, like not scary like that. But like creepy, like get under your skin.
But imagine it creepy.
Yeah, imagine it in the middle of the night and like want to cry yourself to sleep. So it's just, they're unsettling images. But anyway, so they wrote this book, and so of course kids love scary things. People want to sit around campfires and tell scary stories. Like, kids love scary stuff. Like, appropriately scary stuff. This stuff isn't like,
It's not dirty. It's
not
lewd.
dirty or lewd or murderous or gory or anything like that. It is appropriately, like, it's like folklores. They're not like super, I mean, there are some that are really intense, but like most of them are not. So,
right.
What happened was, obviously, this was around the time of Satanic Panic, so they all latched onto the illustrations. Parents, I mean, not everybody in the world, parents latched onto the images and saying that this was traumatizing children and that it was causing them to act violently, and which is hilarious to me because it's their parents saying it.
Well, I would argue that it made kids want to read, so...
Yes, thank you.
Be happy your children are reading.
Yeah.
But
anyway. It just makes... Why are you... That's exactly right. Why are you upset they're reading?
Yeah.
But anyway, so a bunch of moms specifically, no offense to moms, but like, it was a group of moms. They jump on and start getting the book banned all over the country and removed from shelves and put into like adult sections, not like raunchy, but like, like the older sections of the library. And anyway, so he comes out with 3 books total. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, More Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and then I'm flipping through the pages, so hold on. Scary Stories 3, More Tales to Chill Your Bones. So I vividly recall as a child, probably elementary school, it was like talk of the town. This book, because everyone wanted to read it because it had creepy pictures in it.
Mm-hmm.
And but we didn't want our parents to know because for some reason we thought our parents would care. Like my mom would have been curious about it, but I don't think that makes her a bad mom. Like, I think it's just like she would have been happy that I was reading, like you said, like why argue when your kid is reading?
Yeah.
So literally, it would scare me so bad I wouldn't be able to sleep, but I loved it. Obviously, I like scary stuff. Why else would I want to do a podcast, right?
And I am upset that I missed out on part of my youth, that I've just discovered this book recently.
Yeah, like very recently.
Because very recently, I'm ashamed to say, but I do think that it does correlate with the time period. And I was in a small Catholic school that had a very small library.
Oh my God, it would have rocked your school.
And you know what? I'm telling you, my teachers in my school, I bet they were not moms that would have been up in arms over this. I think they would have thought it was cool. You know what I mean?
I would like to address the fact that Gus is scratching on his scratching post, not giving a damn that we are recording something right now. He does not give a shit.
No, but he rarely does.
Anyway, sorry.
But yeah,
I got distracted.
Again, I am a little sad. I feel like I might have missed out on my youth there and this book because honestly, I would have been about it. I would have been up all night reading it, being scared, but also wanting to read it. So
yeah, and like we would like read it like at sleepovers.
Yeah,
which like I mean, post COVID, like there's no more sleepovers. But
right. Back then, you only had to worry about getting lice at a sleepover.
Yeah, that's real. Or like someone pulling a prank on you. You know what I mean? Or getting too scared from the Ouija board.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was never like there was never anything super serious to worry about.
Mm-mm.
But anyway, so funny you should say that you feel like you're missing out, because guess what we're gonna do for the Scary Stories episodes of 31 Nights of Scary Shit? We are going to read the stories, friends, and then we're going to talk about them. So there's going to be periodic Scary Stories episodes that come out, and we've decided that we are going to read a few of them and tell like backstory, talk about like facts, talk about like context of the folklore, because like like I said, Alvan Schwartz, these are all like compiled all folklore and legends and kind of like tweaked them a little bit, but they're essentially the same stories. So, what we're going to do is I purchased this is before the podcast. I got the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, but it's like the compendium, I guess you would call it. Or is that graphic novels? Anyway, anthology? Collection? I don't know. It's bound in one book.
I would call it collection, yes.
Collection, thank you. Sorry, I don't know what to do. So anyway, so I'm going to tell you all the sources that I used, obviously, because
I hope one of them is the book.
Yeah, the book is one of them.
You just decide to tell your own.
Spoiler alert.
Just go rogue.
I just go off as I've said, no one should read my writing. No one should, because it's terrible. Maybe that's a story for a different day. But anyway, so first, I'm using Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Wikipedia, I don't care what anyone says. I love Wikipedia.
By anyone, she just means me.
Yeah, Erin gives me a judgy face every time I say Wikipedia. Every time I can just sense her going, oh, Sarah.
I've gotten over it, and let me tell you, I've lightened up, because the current one I'm researching, I'm actually using Britannica, which, you know, it's just an encyclopedia.
I'm fine with that, though. It's a goddamn encyclopedia.
I know, but it's not very interesting. All right.
So, Wikipedia, this website called mamalisa.com. It's legit. It's legit. Okay. Don't judge me. I used Scary Stories Fandom.
Well, that one's probably
That's
good.
A legit one, I'm sure. And the site that I'm kind of creeped out to have to repeat, scaryforkids.com. Okay, so I'm gonna put that into a context here. So I was also off put, as all four of you who are listening right now are off put. That why is their website called Scary for Kids? Like FOR. Like this is scary for kids. And so I did some research on this website before I took the information and realized these are all stories that are intended to scare kids, like in a campground situation or in a sleepover situation. So it's a website made of scary, it's like creepypasta but for kids.
Right, which I still haven't.
I love creepypasta.
I have not.
Oh my god!
I know. I totally need to do it.
But it's like we need to do Slender Man at some point. But anyway, so back to scary stories to tell in the dark. So the first one I thought I would start with is the Hearse Song, and I'm going to try as hard as I can to not sing it or say it to the tune, because
well, I mean, why not? You...
Once I start reading it, most of you, I would say, if there are. I would say most people, if you've heard of this book, obviously know the song, but I'm sure some of you who haven't read the book know the song. I'm not going to sing it. I'm going to say it, but I'm hopefully not going to say it to the tune. You know what I mean? I don't want to be like that. Okay.
Do you?
I'm not going to do it. Don't you ever laugh as the hearse goes by, for you may be the next to die. They wrap you up in a big white sheet from your head down to your feet. They put you in a big black box and cover you up with dirt and rocks. All goes well for about a week, then your coffin begins to leak. The worms crawl in, the worms crawl out, the worms play pinochle on your snout. They eat your eyes, they eat your nose, they eat the jelly between your toes. A big green worm with rolling eyes crawls in your stomach and out your eyes. Your stomach turns a slimy green and pus pours out like whipping cream. You spread it on a slice of bread, and that's when you eat. That's what you eat when you are dead. So I tried really hard not to sing it to the song, because it's just like, I'm not going to say it's like reading Shakespeare, because that sounds pretentious.
Dr.
But like
Seuss.
You can, Dr. Seuss, thank you. Thank you.
It's a rhythm.
There's a rhythm to it. So anyway, I thought that was a good one to start with, because that's kind of like a universally creepy context, and like there's no underlying meaning. Like you can tell exactly what it is. It's a good intro to the book, in my opinion.
Yes, but I have a question.
Yeah.
What the hell is the jelly between the toes?
Oh,
is it real jelly, or is it like just a term for something else?
So there is this stuff. Oh my god, I wish I knew it off the top of my. If there's anyone that's listening that knows anything about true crime, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But what happens when a body starts to decompose is sometimes it creates this, like, I think it's called corpse wax.
Really?
Where it has something, I think it has to do with like water and decomposition, like if the body is in water and decomposition, I think something like that. I sound really stupid, like I vaguely know about this, and I really do know about this. I just can't remember off the top of my head. I swear I know. Anyway, so it's the jelly between the toes actually is referring to something that would have actually formed on a decomposing body.
Okay, well,
and I think it's called corpse wax. I might be wrong though.
Well, I was actually Googling it.
What is it?
No, that's not right.
Anyway, so if you didn't pick up on it, that song, or poem, whatever you want to call it, is about burial and decomposition. So literally, in the story, it is talking about a body decomposing, and it all centers around what you eat when you're dead. So it is personifying a dead person and explaining what they would eat, almost like a zombie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's talking about all the different parts of the body that break down. So you were saying the jelly between the toes, right? That would be like corpse wax. That's like this, like, what was that?
I think it was Lenny.
Okay, that was like really loud and unsettling.
He sounds like a human. So hopefully that will be him that will appear momentarily, and not hopefully a human that we didn't know was here, but okay.
It talks about a big green worm with rolling eyes crawls in your stomach and out your eyes. That's organisms breaking down your body.
Yeah.
pus, which is just, I forgot about that line, and it is so gross. And pus pours out like whipping cream. Oh, no, thank you. That's gross. Anyway, so it's literally talking about how don't mock the dead because you're going to be there one day,
Right.
and this is what you essentially are going to be.
It's a dose of realism, and I think children need that.
Yes, they do. And I think that is something children are severely lacking right now. Not that I'm going to go on I'm not getting on my soapbox about how children are terrible.
And it's
I mean, they're
science.
not terrible. They're wonderful, but like...
It's a great science lesson. I'm sorry.
It is
How cool would that be as a science lesson? Okay, maybe for kids that are maybe at least middle school or above, but that would really be kind of a cool anatomy science-y lesson. That's what I think. But
I thought I would tell you some like weirdly specific sorry, someone we work with literally just called me 3 times. Anyway, it's fine. So, weirdly enough, this was a very popular World War I song.
Oh, okay.
Which is creepy.
So that's 1914-ish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're talking about decomposing bodies. It just seems a little like
it's pretty morbid.
Yeah, it's damn morbid, yeah. And it was considered a children's song, so children would sing this.
Well, as we know, though, over the centuries...
Bring Around the Rosie?
Children, most of those songs have been born out of
awful things. Yeah. Horrible, horrible, terrible things. It dates back to British soldiers in the Crimean War. I have no idea when that happened, and I did not care enough to look it up.
No.
Which I realize is terrible, and I understand that, but like, it's another war that like probably horrible people did some horrible shit.
Right. As opposed to the wars where people...
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's the same shit.
Where people...
When they do good things to good people, that's called not a war. It first appeared in a ballad called Alonzo the Brave and Fair Imogene. And that was the first appearance of the lyrics, the worms crawled in, the worms crawled out.
Huh.
Which in the rest of the Hearse song, it repeats over and over and over and over again. This Alonzo the Brave and Fair Imogene was actually part of a Gothic romance novel that was published in 1796. And that novel was called The Monk. Have you heard of that before?
I have not.
I feel like I have, but I feel like there's a lot of
really
like
early goth. That's like the pre-goth, really. That's
pre-goth. That's my kind of goth. Like you're like only wearing gray. Yeah. If you're pre-goth. I'm down with gray. Sorry, that was stupid. In the novel, it tells the story of a young woman. I'm not going to call her a maiden because that's just stupid. I hate that word, maiden.
Fair maiden.
Ugh, make me want to vomit. I almost went into the rap from what is that movie? Malibu. What is it?
I don't know.
Malibu's Most Wanted? Or something like... Anyway, sorry. That was a side tangent. Sorry. Anyway, the novel tells us the story of a young woman who vows to love a warrior who's going into battle.
Okay.
Cliche. And that even if he dies, she's never going to love anyone else. And then she dies. And then it goes into what he does when she dies. It's a very weird story. I read part of it and was like, yeah, I'm done. But then I went to the part that was talking about the worms crawled in, the worms crawled out. And it sounds and goes to the same beat as the Hearse song.
Yeah.
It has the same, I don't even know what the word is.
Rhythm, cadence,
pattern? I don't know. Whatever it is. So that's about it that I got for the Hearse song. So it's a British folklore song. It originated in Britain, is what they call it. What they classified it as. So we're gonna switch gears here to Nova Scotia. we're gonna hop across the pond to Nova Scotia. Sorry, for a second I couldn't think of geography for a second. and we're going to read The Thing. Now, look at that picture. I know I'm not talking to you guys, I'm talking to Aaron. Creepy. It's unsettling. It looks like he has no lips. Like, no lips. Just stringy little teeth. A weird looking nose. It looks like the Grinning Man.
It does look like Grinning
It
Man.
looks like Grinning Man.
Yeah.
Wait a second. Oh, no.
Is he tied into that at all?
No, it's faintly reminiscent. But he also has these like sunken in eyes that are like really dark. He's just it's unsettling. The Thing is the name of the story. The Thing. So I'm gonna read the story. It's only about a page, so excuse me, pardon me. Ted Martin and Sam Miller were good friends. They spent a lot of time together. On this particular night, they were sitting on a fence near the post office, talking about one thing and another. There was a field of turnips across the road. Suddenly, they saw something crawl out of the field and stand up. It looked like a man, but in the dark, it was hard to tell for sure. Then it was gone. But soon it appeared again. It walked halfway across the road, then it turned around and went back into the field. Then it came out a third time and started toward them. By now, Ted and Sam were scared, and they started running. But when they finally stopped, they decided they were being foolish. They weren't sure what had scared them, so they decided to go back and get a better look. Pretty soon they saw it, for it was coming to meet them. It was wearing black pants, a white shirt, and black suspenders. Sam said, "I'm going to try to touch it, then we'll know if it's real." He walked up to it and peered into its face. It had bright, penetrating eyes sunk deep in its head, and it looked like a skeleton. Ted took one look and screamed, and again he and Sam ran. But this time the skeleton followed them. When they got to Ted's house, they stood in the doorway and watched it. It stayed out in the road for a while, then it disappeared. A year later, Ted got sick and died. Toward the end, Sam sat up with him every night. The night Ted died, Sam said he looked just like the skeleton.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It abruptly takes a sharp turn right at the end. So the reason that seems to take a sharp turn right at the end is because when I almost called him Alfred. When Alvan Schwartz was writing this, he took a novel essentially. He took a novel essentially, and hopefully you heard what I just said and the audio didn't cut out. He essentially took like a relatively long ghost story and condensed it into one page. So there's a lot of plot that is missing from this that explains it a lot more. Also, it's very confusing. Who is the one that dies? Does the thing ever touch them? What is going on? Yeah. So essentially, to break it down, these two dudes are hanging out. They see this thing come out of the field. It comes towards them 3 times, and the last time they run away from it. They realize they're acting like idiots because they just ran away from like a man that might need help or a farmer or something. So they go back and he's like coming towards them. So they go up to him trying to figure out like what's going on, and he doesn't move. And then they bolt and he runs after them. He chases them up onto Ted's house, into Ted's house. Ted is the one that dies.
Okay.
Sam is the one that says he looked like the skeleton at the end. So, essentially, what it is explaining in so many words is a Nova Scotian ghost story from a book called The Blue Nose Ghosts.
Nope.
No idea. No. It was written by a Canadian folklorist, Helen Crichton, and she wrote it over a period of 28 years.
Wow.
It was first published in 1957. So she took 28 years and collected all of these ghost stories specifically from Nova Scotia.
Wow.
And put them together into a book called Blue Nose Ghosts. And this particular story is based off of this folklore around what's called forerunners of sight, which means predicting the future, essentially. So in the story, it's supposed to be assumed that the skeleton that's coming towards them is supposed to be Ted when he dies.
So it's essentially the premonition, the foreboding.
Indrid Cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of a connection there. And I guess in Nova Scotia it's considered like a bad thing if you find out about your future before, like if
Mm-hmm.
you hear what's going to happen before or see what's going to happen before, it's going to be really bad. And normally ends with you dying. Most of the time, you die when you see a future self or a future situation. But that's all the information I could find about that story without actually getting the book, and I couldn't get the book in print. I would have to have gone to a library and searched the libraries to find it because I guess it's not digitized,
Oh,
which is weird.
it's
Um,
very mysterious. Actually, it
it's
makes it. It
spooky.
makes it. Yeah, it makes it seem very
But I did find out
intriguing.
that Helen Crichton, she like wrote multiple, like a series of Blue Nose and then insert some sort of word after it books that are all revolving around Nova Scotia. It's fascinating. I'm like, I want to know about more. No, I want to know more about Nova Scotia.
Hmm.
Being interesting. I don't know anything
Interesting.
about it.
I know
It
nothing about
seems
it.
mysterious, you know?
Yes.
All right. So the last story, it's the longest one, and this is a super exciting one for me. This one in particular was always terrifying to me because I don't know about you, but I suffered from and continue to suffer from sleep paralysis.
I've experienced it.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, I believe that's what I've experienced
I
on
think that's what I've
a
experienced. I mean, no one's ever told me that, but I've never shared it with like a doctor. Because,
no,
like,
me
who
neither.
cares?
But when I read up on what actually happens, I'm like, oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
happened to me. Definitely happened to
Yeah.
me.
It's
Yeah, it's
been pretty bad.
yeah.
And if I'm wrong and someone wants to correct me, email us at 31nights of scary shit at gmail.com.
Yes, diagnose
Boom.
us, please. Yeah.
Plug. Right there, friends. You just insert those plugs left and right. That sounded sexual. I didn't mean it to. Anyway, so on this particular picture, spooky
Oh,
ooky.
I love that one.
This one's really pretty. It's a full page image, not just like, a third of the page. And it's like the nighttime, and I want to say it's like in a field or by a river or some sort. But it's like very like foggy, and there's like a image of a person, but is it an image of a person? It's spooky ooky.
It
But
is.
like in a pretty way.
Yeah, it's just like beautifully done. I like how you can't really tell where the
Like
shadows
there's a
start and end.
face here, but is there supposed to be a
Yeah,
face here?
yeah, definitely.
There's a face here, but is there supposed to be a face here?
Oh my
There's a
gosh,
lot of
yes,
things that
totally.
you're like, well, there's a lot going on in this picture, and I don't know if it's intentional or not. Another face up there, a face over here, a face over here. It's very creepy.
Well, I don't know if you're gonna know this, but were these drawings
Oh, there's a face there.
only drawn specifically to be scaled to a book, or were these larger prints that were just like cut
I
down
think he made them for he illustrated the book,
just for the book?
and then I think he made them into print. Like he
That one is
made them into
awesome. Like
prints.
I
Yeah.
would hang that. I like that, to be honest with you.
Okay, so this one is called The Window.
Ooh, the window.
Margaret and her brothers Paul and David shared a small house on top of a hill just outside the village. It was so warm one summer's night that Margaret could not sleep. She sat up in bed in the darkness of her room watching the moon move across the sky. Suddenly, something caught her eye. She saw two small yellow-green lights moving through the woods near the graveyard at the bottom of the hill. It's already creepy. I'm just going to interject. They they looked like the eyes of some animal, but she could not make out what kind of creature it was. Soon the creature left the woods and moved up the hill toward the house. For a few minutes, Margaret lost sight of it. Then she saw it coming across the lawn toward her window. It looked something like a man, and yet it didn't. Margaret was terrified. She wanted to run from her room, but the door was next to her window. She was afraid the creature would see her and break in before she could escape. When the creature turned and moved in another direction, Margaret rushed to the door, but before she could open the door, it was back. Margaret found herself staring through the window at a shrunken face like that of a mummy. Its yellow green eyes gleamed like a cat's eyes. She wanted to scream, but she was so frightened that she could not make a sound. The creature broke the window glass, unlocked the window, and crawled inside. I mean, at that point, you've already broken the glass. Just crawl in through the window. But whatever. Margaret, sorry, interjection again. Margaret tried to flee, but the creature caught her. It twisted its long, bony fingers into her hair,
No.
pulled back her head, and sank its teeth into her throat.
Oh.
Margaret screamed and fainted. Excuse me, not COVID. When her brothers heard her piercing scream, they rushed to her room, but by the time they got the door unlocked, the creature had fled. Margaret lay on the floor bleeding and unconscious. While Paul tried to stop the bleeding, David chased the creature down the hill toward the graveyard, but soon he lost sight of it. The police thought it was the work of an escaped lunatic who believed he was a vampire. When Margaret recovered, her brothers wanted to move to a safer place where it would be harder to break in, but Margaret refused. The creature would never come back. She was sure of that. But just in case, Paul and David began to keep loaded pistols in their rooms. One night, months later, Margaret was awakened by a scratching sound at the window. When she opened her eyes, there was the same shrunken face staring in at her. That night, her brothers heard her cries in time. They chased the creature down the hill and David shot it in the leg. But the creature managed to scramble over the graveyard wall and disappeared near an old burial vault. The next day, Margaret and her brothers watched as the sexton of the church opened the burial vault. Inside was a horrifying scene. Broken coffins, bones, and rotting flesh were scattered all over the floor. Only one coffin had not been disturbed. When the sexton opened it, there lay the creature with the shrunken face that had attacked Margaret. The telltale bullet was in its leg. They did the only thing they knew of to rid themselves of a vampire. The sexton built a roaring blaze outside the vault and fed the shrunken body to the flames. They watched the body burn until nothing remained but ashes. Terrifying.
Yikes.
It's just it's creepy. It hits on like every fear I feel you have like as a girl. Yeah. Feel like men don't understand. Like it's just someone could just break in. Yeah. Like I mean, I know it happens to men too, but like it's a little different. But anyway, so that story, shocker, is about vampires. And it's also tied back to England and Britain area. I don't know the difference. Sorry to no one from Britain or England that is listening and I don't know what it is. So anyway, yeah. I'm going to just go with both. Cover all my bases. And it's based okay, so again, if it's British, I don't know if I can pronounce it. Based on Croglan Grange. I'm going to go with Croglan Grange.
Croglan Grange.
Croglan Grange. And it is from the story of my life. Not my life, but it's from the book The Story of My Life by Augustus Hare, which was published in the 1890s. And it was talking about this vampire legend that had occurred in Cumberland, England. And it pretty much follows the exact plot lines of The Window where, there's this sister and her two brothers, and someone breaks into the house and attacks the sister, and the brothers want to move somewhere safe. However, in the book, The Story of My Life, the brothers convince the sister to move away and they stay safe for a while, and then something happens with one of the brothers and they have to move back, and then the vampire comes back. So it's a little bit extended in the book, but it has the same general like flow. Mm-hmm. And in the house where it happens, it's this property called Croglan Grange, apparently. So this guy, Charles G. Harper, wanted to prove that these were the events that happened in The Story of My Life by Augustus Hare. He wanted to prove whether or not they were factual, because Augustus Hare was saying, this is exactly how these things happened during my life. And like going down with the ship of like, this is what I witnessed, this is what happened. And this guy, I just feel like he's a dick for like just being a dick to Hare. I mean, what? Just let him be a weirdo. You know what I mean? And he started telling everybody that Croglan Grange never existed, which, like, who cares whether it existed or not? Vampires are spooky. But he did find two buildings that vaguely matched the description that were in the book, that was in the book. And he determined that one of them had to have been used as the original reference for the book. But again, who cares?
Right.
Who cares is what I say to you, Harper. No one cares. But it's just like, that's a guy that was like, you know what? I'm not down with vampires, so I'm going to focus on architecture.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a very odd thing to focus on. You
So
know what I mean?
it is. So I will say that one of my definite childhood fears, you know how you back in the day you could sleep with your windows open and not really worry about it? I don't know, maybe you don't know that.
Yeah.
But I lived out in I essentially lived in the woods. There weren't a lot of neighbors at the time, and we always had our windows open and didn't close the main door. We had the screen door open. I can remember though, because my bed was right like against the wall. I was right underneath the window. I can remember waking up at young age, 5, 6 years old, and dreaming that someone was in the window.
Yeah, that's real.
That's always been one of my fears. So I am kind of like a freak about windows always being closed, even when it was like hot as hell.
Yeah.
I would close, like as a kid, I wanted my window closed. And of course it was so damn hot. We didn't
Yeah.
have air conditioning, but like I've never been a fan. I wish I would get past it a bit because I love to have the air come in, but not when I'm sleeping. I cannot have a window open. I just, to this day,
Yeah.
I don't like it.
I'm like, well, sorry, I opened the windows.
No. When we're awake and we're here,
I got you. When you sleep, I got you.
I'm not going to be like alone and leave my window open all night because.
Oh my gosh, Gus just stretched like a little Halloween cat.
Here.
Oh my gosh, he just ran right over. He loves you. Okay,
quite a leap.
So yeah, he's majestic when he wants to be. Yeah, so it's funny you brought up the window thing again, because obviously we just read the window, it makes sense. But I always have this weird thing with windows, not about them being open, but like I imagine there's someone there, but it makes no sense. Like if we go down to like physics, right? So like I've imagined that I've seen someone's head and shoulders in that window. That means that person has to be at least 7 to 9 feet tall.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And that's impossible. So I always have these like visions with windows where I almost said windows.
The windows.
Oh my gosh.
The vampire.
Like vampire. I literally vampire.
Vampire.
Anyway, of the vampire. So anyway, it's just very unsettling to me, windows, because like when I was a kid, my room was always on the second floor. There should never have been somebody standing outside my window.
No.
But sometimes I would have these dream awake moments where I couldn't tell whether I was in a dream or not.
Sleep
and it
paralysis.
looks like there's somebody standing outside my window and I'm on the second floor. Yeah. Like it's impossible.
Speaking of that, do you remember the night where we had essentially the same sleep paralysis vision? Do you remember that? Remember I told you, I said, okay, so last night I sat up in bed and I looked at I've got that, it's not a closet.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So remember I sat up and I said what appeared to be whatever I thought it was, like just a figure.
Like a figure,
an image, and I looked at my hanging clothes pole and I'm like, dude, there's somebody there.
Oh my god, I remember that.
And I sat there for a good, I felt for sure I'm awake. I was gonna say I'm alive.
I'm awake.
Yeah, I'm awake and I'm just like, I know I'm seeing this. I remember physically telling myself like, okay, you're seeing this. And then I sat there and I kind of shook my head and I went, okay, I'm going back to sleep. So then I proceed to tell you and you're like, you get real quiet. I'm like, what? I had the same thing happen. I'm like,
it's so scary.
Like, no, how does that happen?
Because demons are real, Aaron, and sometimes they come to haunt you.
I don't know,
and ghosts are real. Ghosts are real, but I'm not going to tell my ghost stories today because
no, that's a whole other show.
I got ghost shamed by some people that shall remain nameless. You know who you are.
Today?
No.
Oh.
No. Oh. When I told my ghost stories about things, there were some people that were close to me that shamed me for it. So
isn't that always the case though? There's always
I know, but it was like really intense and personal and I didn't like it. I was told I was insane. Not just like nuts. Like nuts seems like in a joking manner. You're nuts. That's crazy nuts. Mm-hmm. But when you tell someone they're insane, it sounds like a condition. You know what I mean? It sounds like there's something seriously wrong. And it was not fun. So a different day we will tell spooky ooky ghost stories that we've experienced.
Well, we need to start making some travels, some conscientious visits to haunted places. I think,
oh my gosh, later in the month.
To get into our ghosty
vibe.
I
can tell you that later in the month there are some visits that we will be organizing of
Yes.
haunted places, towns, places.
Places. At the very
Mostly
least.
places. And we're going to roll right into that in the next episode, because in the next episode, what we're actually going to be talking about is a very particular location called Crybaby Bridge.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I'm not
Love
talking
that.
about
Love
the
that.
hundreds of Crybaby Bridges in the United States. I'm talking about the one in Maryland that is tied very closely with the Goat Man of
Yes.
Fletchertown Road, if you want to go with the proper name. But that's what we're going to be focusing on the next episode. And I'm thinking, I wish Crybaby Bridge was still around. They've completely torn it down. Like it doesn't exist in the same way that it used to exist.
Well, what's there in its place? Just
I
nothing?
mean, it's just no. It's just like they redid the road, and there's houses there, and little mini strip malls. Like it's not like it's spooky anymore. But the Goat Man is a fun story to talk about, and we'll get into that. And I just absolutely loved the whole Goat Man concept when I was a kid, because I remember hearing the story, because it's based around PG County, Prince George's County. And not that I grew up in PG County. I did not grow up in PG County. Not that that's something to be ashamed of. I love PG County. But I heard about it because I grew up in Montgomery County, which is close. And if you're not from Maryland, they touch each other. Montgomery County and PG County. So some of the stories, the kids' stories that everyone tells, they, float back and forth. So anyway, we want to remind you to send us scary stories at our Gmail, and we're thinking about starting an Instagram. Not 100% certain if I want to get into another Instagram account because I have so many of them at this point.
Why do you have so many?
Well, I have to have one for me. I have one for
work.
I have to manage the one for work.
Manage one at work.
Which shall remain nameless. And I have to, well, I don't have to, but I also have one for my crocheting, and we're not going to judge me because I'm a little old lady that crochets.
No, I won't judge you for that. There's other things to judge you for. I'm not going to judge you for that.
Wow,
no,
this bitch.
No.
This bitch over here.
No, I wouldn't judge you for that. That's hey, you've got a hobby. I really don't have that.
I do.
I wish my life
was, but my hobby now is this. So
well, it's a hobby that we want to make into.
So I guess I do need to make an Instagram. So I'm gonna make an Instagram.
We should.
I might make a Facebook page. I don't know anything about Twitter.
No, I
if there's somebody out there that wants to help me with Twitter,
I don't really.
I just feel like
I don't want to do anything with Twitter.
I will very quickly get into a Twitter argument. Anyway, this is not about social media, but anyway, if you want to tell us your stories, send it to 31 nights of scary shit at gmail.com, and the 31 is 31, not the word spelled out.
Right.
So 31 nights of scary shit at gmail.com. And Aaron, you wanna
what take us
out?
Want to send us out? All right. Well, thank you to whoever you are out there that has come upon our podcast,
our spooky podcast.
Stay spooky, and we will catch you next episode.
Bye.